Hi, I'm Jennifer Fletcher, faculty in the Division of Humanities and Communication at California State University, Monterey Bay. This professional learning video takes a look at the importance of formative assessment to the successful implementation of the CSU Expository Reading and Writing course. One of the 7 key principles behind the ERWC's design is built-in flexibility to allow teachers to respond to varied students' needs and instructional contexts. How do we know when we need to adapt to a changing classroom situation? What evidence tells us that we need to customize instruction for a particular class or student, or when we need to reteach a difficult concept? Flexibility and responsiveness are essential to a rhetorical approach. When we teach rhetorically, we pay extra close attention to our classroom context and to the needs, interests, values, and experiences of our students. For that to happen, formative assessment has to have a central place in instruction. Formative assessment is all about the alert responsiveness to context, purpose, and audience at the heart of rhetorical theory. It's how we measure the vibe in our classrooms. Distinct in purpose from both diagnostic and summative assessment, formative assessment can be thought of as an interactive process that offers teachers and students a pulse check on learning. It's a live feedback loop, a progress measure, or a guide for future actions. Above all, formative assessment is an opportunity for intervention when the best laid plans go awry. Try this. Take a look at the following list of 10 formative assessment strategies and see how many you already use in your own classroom. Hold a pen or pencil vertically, so like this, for each strategy that you've already used, and horizontally for strategies you haven't tried yet. Like the thumbs up or thumbs down technique, a pencil pull is a quick, easy, low-tech way to get a read on our classrooms. You might also try high-tech response systems like clickers, if your school has that technology, or a website like Poll Everywhere. So take a look at the list. And again, you're holding your pen or pencil vertically if you've done it before, and horizontally if you haven't. Take it out the door. Pencil pull, you're doing that now, right? Once around, one sentence summary, exit slip, fuzzy clear, popsicle stick or playing card responses, process quick writes, vocabulary self-assessment, or student-generated test questions. Chances are you've used some of these strategies before to assess students' learning in process. And you can find these strategies and more, as well as some key principles and scholarship informing formative assessment in online resource number 1 on formative assessment. It's in the ERWC online community, and you'll find that under the resources tab and under the section on professional learning. So scholars generally agree on the following purposes of formative assessment: to clarify expectations, to gather data that can inform instruction, to increase student motivation and metacognition, to provide corrective feedback to students. These goals highlight formative assessment's constructivist approach, because formative assessment largely occurs during the middle of the instructional cycle. It measures students developing procedural knowledge in action while also contributing to their learning. In other words, formative assessments help to construct or form students' skills, knowledge, and abilities as they progress toward a summative assessment. When students pause during a reading assignment, for example, to reflect on the strategies they use to make sense of difficult sections of the text, they practice a form of metacognition that gives them greater control over their own learning. They also engage in a deeper reading of the text. Teachers, moreover, can use these reflections to identify where their students struggle and to provide appropriate scaffolding. The Preceding goals additionally reflect formative assessments focus on coaching students to higher levels of achievement. The interventions that follow a formative assessment encourage students to push beyond a superficial understanding of the content or basic proficiency of a skill to increasingly sophisticated levels of mastery. This might mean coaching a student through a draft of an essay or a speech, providing redirection and modeling as needed. And the ultimate goal is internalized, automatic, and expressive learning, and that requires ongoing mentoring. While a planned formative assessment, like a rubric for summary writing, might provide more detailed information, those spur-of-the-moment formative assessments, like the pencil pull that we just did, or the thumbs up, thumbs down comprehension check, can be particularly effective for monitoring learning in real time. For instance, if you observe during a class discussion that a majority of your students tended to make sweeping generalizations or unsupported claims, you might modify your next day's lesson to include a review of critical reasoning skills. And the point with all of this is that teachers and students need to do something with the information they gain from the formative assessment, whether that assessment is a formal test or a casual conversation. Effective formative feedback typically answers these three questions. And the first one is, where am I going? This is what we call feed up. The next is, how am I going? This is feedback. And where to next? This is feed forward. And you'll see in the ERWC materials that we provide formative assessment opportunities that address these three questions. You'll also find more discussion of those questions in online resource number 1. We can also give students feedback based on different aspects or levels of learning. For instance, we can give feedback on the task level. How well do I, as a student, perform the task? The process level, what do I, as a learner, need to do to understand or perform the task? So that would be more of the procedural knowledge, that kind of behind-the-scenes brain work. So if the task might be something like writing an argument essay, the finished essay itself is the task, but the process level might be different strategies for invention, for development, for organization. How do you structure the essay? What do you need to do in terms of things like thinking through the relationship between evidence and support? A third level is the self-regulation level. How can I, as a self-regulating learner, monitor and control actions that get the task done? So now we're into things like time management and planning. This is an on-demand essay, and the student has only 40 minutes to write the essay. How much time should be spent in drafting a scratch outline and gathering quotations, and at what stage does the student start to compose? The final level is the self level, and this is really that metacognitive view of what am I doing as a learner with respect to my mastery of the task. As these questions show, formative assessment highlights the behind-the-scenes hard work of learning. And this can be a real change from diagnostic and summative assessments, which may seem, at least on the surface, to privilege performance or even to privilege ability over effort. Students who learn to self-evaluate through frequent formative assessments, on the other hand, are often more motivated to seek and apply additional feedback on their learning because they see the connection between effort and achievement. Now let's take a quick look at a formative assessment activity from the Value of Life module. This is in the Semester 1 binder of the ERWC curriculum. If you've already received your ERWC materials, you can find activity 41 on page 40 of the teacher version of the Value of Life. And this is the module that examines questions of how human life should be valued, what makes a human life valuable, through a variety of different text types, ranging from Hamlet's soliloquy, the to be or not to be speech in William Shakespeare's play, to a human life economic calculator that's used by insurance companies. As you look at Activity 41, you'll notice that in this section called Reflecting on the Reading Process, that students answer several questions designed to promote metacognition. For instance, what have you learned from joining this conversation, and what do you want to learn next? What reading strategies did you use or learn in this module, and which strategies will you use in reading other texts? And how will these strategies apply in other classes? And then, in what ways has your ability to read and discuss texts like this one improved? Activity 41 is an assessment of students' rhetorical reading strategies that's designed to help you, as the teacher, gather data about student performance in order to make instructional choices. At this point, and for this activity, you don't need to assign a grade based on how many questions students answered correctly. And in fact, as you'll see, some of the items are intentionally ambiguous so that students can reason their way through the options. What we want to see here is students' brain work in action. Students read the text, What is the Value of a Human Life by Kenneth Feinberg, and then choose the best answer for each of the following text-dependent questions. And as you look through the different questions in Activity 41, you'll see that each question has a cognitive target, so the phrase in bold outlines what it is we're trying to assess of the students' rhetorical reading skills. For instance, you'll see questions with the heading Determining the Meaning of Words. You'll see the various answer choices, so this is multiple choice, but it's multiple choice with a twist, because after the answer selections, there's an additional spot where students have to justify their answer. And so you see a short answer section, a fill in the blank, where students have to explain their rationale for why they chose the answer that they selected. And what might be really interesting for you to note as a teacher is that sometimes there will be a disconnect between what students choose for the multiple choice answer and then the reasoning that they articulate in the short answer section. After students complete and correct the quiz, they can discuss the following questions with a partner, and you'll notice that these are those key questions that are a part of the formative assessment approach used in the ERWC. So first, where are you going? What will you need to do in this class, either classes, college, or your future career, that will require you to read rhetorically? Next, how are you going? What rhetorical reading skills have you mastered so far? Which skills are still challenging for you? And then the third question, where to next? What do you need to do to continue to improve your ability to read rhetorically? You, as the teacher, can review your students' answer selections, justifications, and annotations to see where your students could use a little more support or review. If your students are having trouble annotating and analyzing the passage independently, for instance, and in Activity 41 they read the passage cold, you might try spending more time modeling how to read a text rhetorically, doing things like the think aloud activity that you'll find, for instance, in the module Bring a Text to Class. Students may need to see more demonstrations of how to identify rhetorical choices and their effects before they can do this work on their own. As this example shows, formative assessment gives us a view of learning that is larger than content standards and high-stakes exams. As teachers, we understand that many of the most important learning outcomes from our courses are not easily measured by benchmark assessments. While soft skills like engagement, curiosity, persistence, responsibility, flexibility, and metacognition may not appear on standardized tests, they are essential to the development of critical reading and writing skills. These dispositional capacities are often most visible during the messy middle of the instructional cycle, when formative assessment is crucial. That's because such intellectual dispositions or habits of mind are typically more evident in students' learning processes than in their products. Hence, formative assessments of how students are learning combined with summative assessments of what students have learned can help make the hidden work of intellectual growth more visible to both teachers and learners. Thank you.